COVID. I need to be
The broadcast is
But
live.
actually,
live.
but actually, it's 2019 because with Cells for Life with the kids.
Live.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's begin.
Hello everyone, I'm Mehak, Zaraq, and welcome to the ADR Initiative's 6th webinar in Alliance series for bridging the distance in dispute resolution to peace. The ADR Initiative is Pakistan's first dispute resolution platform offering online dispute resolution and training courses accredited by CMC and CME with ADR ODR International. It is instrumental in promoting ADR in Pakistan with its Alliance series and research projects as it hopes to bring dispute resolution out of the dark. Today we are honored to host Mr. Ehsan Awan, Managing Director of Nawan Labs, and Ms. Ayesha Khokhar, Director and Company Attorney, along with Mr. Akbar Hussain, the founder of the ADR Initiative LLP, as we talk about Pharma, ADR, and COVID-19. I would like to invite Mr. Ehsan and Ms. Ayesha to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ehsan Awan, looking after the operations of Nawan Pharmaceutical Laboratories for the past 20 years. And Madam Ayesha, please introduce yourself.
I'm Ayesha Awan. So I'm Ayesha Awan. I'm a lawyer by profession. I've recently joined the company in 2019. I'm the corporate attorney and the director. I'm currently handling Nawan Diagnostic Divisions and Health and Hygiene.
A little bit more about the company. It was established in 1996, and it is one of the companies which is building a future focused on growth and innovation, quality products, and distribution coverage throughout Pakistan and internationally. From start to finish, Nawan provides a diversified range of high-quality, health-related products in pharmaceuticals, diagnostics, health, and hygiene. So the topic today is Pharma, COVID, and ADR. As like every walk of life, the corporate sector has also been affected by the pandemic. Pharma companies are in the spotlight for their position within the situation. There have been presumptions that maybe as other industries suffered, perhaps pharma did not. Even so, what issues did they face? COVID-19 has put the pharma industry on alert in a way since everyone is turning to them to provide a solution. On the other hand, there is misinformation about potential cures as people have been panic buying and hoarding possible vaccines such as the malaria medicine that Trump endorsed with other medicines that they already have to buy. Changes in demand and supply, issues with transport, and people in a confused pandemic state all seem like a recipe for disputes. Nawan Labs has been trying to cut through the misinformation and provided innovative solutions, and today we have the luxury of talking with them on how we can help them when they're facing issues. So starting with Ayesha.
I think they just dropped out of the webinar.
Yeah.
There might be technical issues there. I think
Okay, they're back.
Hi, we're back.
Hey.
Bari der ho gaya.
No, good timing because I was about to start the questions.
Okay.
So
Just
starting with.
all right. No, I'll just thank you for the introduction, Mehak. Thank you very much. I'll just give a brief of the company. Basically, we are based in Karachi, and we are a pharmaceutical manufacturing company. But in 2015, we diversified into several other divisions, where we thought that we should come up with a healthcare provision, being a healthcare provider. With that, we are not just restricted to pharmaceuticals. We also came up with the division of diagnostics, where we import kits, PCR kits, instruments, machinery for diagnostic labs, as well as we started out the healthcare and hygiene division back in 2019, where we thought that people are now more conscious about health and hygiene and immunity and all those things. So with that thing in mind, we came into a nutraceutical products and OTC products as well. And pharmaceutical medicines has always been our forte for the last 20 years. So with that thing in mind, we're a total company providing a healthcare solution. So that's, I just wanted to put that in perspective, that we face issues from nutraceuticals, from DRAP, and also from other aspects which we will talk about.
बेहतरीन हो गया. Okay.
Okay. So thank you for that introduction and thank you for being with us. So for more clarification, we want to know what is the nature of your business and how has COVID-19 affected your business?
Okay. So in two ways, since I told you that we are a pharmaceutical company and we already have around 178 medicines that we promote and we market in Pakistan as well as exports. So to order to market these, we have a field force, medical reps who go to the doctors and promote the products. Our pharmaceutical division, and with that in the pharma industry, all the pharmaceutical companies suffered I would say not a lot, but around 40%, because our medical reps could not visit any doctors, clinics, hospitals, just because all the hospitals and the clinics were shut down due to lockdowns. So around 40% of sales were affected in the pharma sector. And since we have a veterinary division, and around 25% was affected in the veterinary division, the veterinary pharmaceutical. But at the same time, since we had these two divisions of the diagnostics, where we imported PCR kits and as well as antibodies, that grew a bit. And at the same time, the health and hygiene division, where we have sanitizers and all. So my own personal experience has been that we've actually netted off probably with
so
the.
I think we've had both good and bad
we had both good and bad
experiences as a company. I think the bad has definitely been the fact that OPDs have been shut. This is a one-off incident that happened with COVID that never before. And I think as lawyers, you both can understand that, this is the first time that courts were shut, going into a court. And so everything turned the other way. So similarly with us, with OPDs closed, clinics closed, hospitals having very minimum patients in and out, our pharma sector, I think, was affected more because we do a lot of prescription drugs. And obviously when the doctor is not sitting, the prescription drugs, people were very scared to go to hospitals. If they had some minor problems, they would just stay home, So obviously our sales were hugely affected there. Our reps were not able to go and meet clinics. So obviously that, the sales department had a huge blow. Just also Nawan, at Nawan, we don't just do human pharmaceuticals. We also have a veterinary division. So we basically are producing, manufacturing both human and veterinary. In the veterinary side, interestingly, so we have also, I think, 25 to 30%. I think it hit us. The sales went low. And it's because livestock was also affected, because when typical reps came, they said, there are no weddings happening. The people aren't getting together. There's basically no feasting. So there's no livestock being used. So obviously that affected businesses a lot. And it had a huge blow because restaurants, shadis, as you all know, with businesses, all of these are connected to it. So I think that side we had a little blow with it.
But the internal conflict that we had with the management and the employees, that the employees have to be paid, and especially the field force has to be paid while there is no work. So obviously, if you have a field force, which is more than 200, 250 or 500 people, and that's not just to us, with all the pharmaceutical companies. So there are around 700 manufacturing units in Pakistan, and at the same time, there are around 300 imported pharmaceutical companies, like the people are importers. The field force in Pakistan, or I would say the medical reps in Pakistan hired by all these pharmaceutical companies, is around 25,000. So you can imagine that 25,000 or 30,000 people, were being paid or not being paid by these companies. So that was a big hit by to the pharmaceutical company. So I would just say that was an issue that we had to decide how to go about. So I think most of the companies did very well by paying their employees off, and they did not go with any downsizing or anything of that sort. In our own personal experience, I didn't hear any of conflicts arising with employees. It was an evolving situation, so I thought most of the pharmaceutical companies took the high road and they paid the employees. Interestingly, after the first month, I would say in April, because COVID-19 came in February to Pakistan, and by March and April, I would say the sales of the pharmaceutical companies did pick up for a bit because of panic buying. But in May and June, it still was down. And then
for instance, we produce azithromycin.
Yeah.
You must have heard about it. Azithromycin, I think, how much was in the market? It's for about 200?
250.
250.
Yeah.
So it went up to 600. People were selling it, distributors. We had people calling us saying, azithromycin is not available. So our brand name is different. We go by the name of
azithromycin.
Yeah. So basically, the antibiotic was used as a combination drug in COVID.
Yeah.
So during that time, we had calls with friends and family calling saying, we're not able to get it, and not just for COVID, but for normal fever and flu, people needed it, and they weren't able to. So panic buying was there. People were hoarding, which made the price artificially rise, the supplies go down.
Yeah.
So things like this were happening.
And then I can divulge into details about each segment of the pharmaceutical therapeutic category. So I don't think the viewers would like it, but I'm just saying, the long-term illnesses like Alzheimer's and cardio and diabetic, that was not affected, but the infectious diseases was affected. So I mean, we can go into details, but I think overall a 40% decrease in overall sales.
So we also do stem cell banking. We have a bank. We have an exclusive agency with a bank in the UK. So we do banking for newborn babies, right? So what was happening there is that the flights were cancelled. So we were very skeptical in taking new cases on because, if there was an emergency case, somebody went into labor, we were not able, we have to basically send the sample within 24 hours, catch a flight, and it has to go to the UK. So our company, I think we didn't take up cases for 3 months. We only scheduled C-sections if there were any. So just for that, because we knew exactly the date, we could book in advance, we could get in touch with DHL, etc. So we had to limit a lot of our businesses.
And basically we had a disclaimer, but if something like that would arise, then we would obviously come to an understanding, or if not, then some sort of mediation has to be there for the customers or for us to go ahead and see what's the way forward. So anyway,
now you're talking my language.
Yeah. But the good thing, I think it wasn't, COVID wasn't all so bad also. We have a diagnostic division. We launched a diagnostic division in 2019. In early 2020, when COVID and everything started happening, we had basically 3 things that we started off. First was from our health and hygiene department, launched a sanitizer. It was a spray sanitizer. We then went into disinfectants, and now we're going to disinfectants with companies, schools, offices, etc. The second thing that our diagnostic division started was to bring innovative tests to Pakistan. So just like your ADR, the principle behind it is to go, come around to conventional and procedures. The same way we wanted to move away from conventional laboratories, try to revolutionize, bring novel things in the market, and then we brought in an antibody test kit, which used to give results within 15 minutes. It's a point of care testing. We also got in WHO approved PCR kits, which we were providing to labs all over Pakistan. One thing that I think that was different in COVID is, which is also surprising, was that the first time a pharmaceutical company was getting into, partnerships with corporates. Never before has this ever happened that we've, a pharma company is, working with, corporate companies, having a corporate strategy, making presentations for HR. That wasn't our forte, but we, mashallah, with our team, we ventured into that. We partnered with a couple of corporate companies, both local and multinationals. We provided complete employee screening programs, which meant that we would test them for COVID-19 just to see if the company is safe. We gave SOPs to them. And during this time, we partnered with a number of labs all around Pakistan. In Karachi, we partnered with the Advanced Lab. So they were providing their nurses, everything for testing. And then we got into retail, which has been a challenging part because normally our medical reps and our sales have been it's been clinics and hospitals primarily. We didn't sell over the counter as such, and especially not at grocery stores and retail outlets. So with our sanitizers, now it's suddenly become an essential. So then we stocked them at different grocery stores. We stocked them at retail outlets, etc. So these were new partnerships, new things that had developed for the company. Another interesting partnership that we've had, and a very successful one that we've had, is with an NGO, Legal Aid Office, where we provided testing facilities all over Sindh for their prisons. So that was also a unique partnership because it's an NGO and a pharmaceutical company. But things like this happened, which was good.
Overall, alhamdulillah, Nawan as a company grew in terms of diversification. So that's how we grew in COVID-19. Just to elaborate what Ayesha has said, that primarily diagnostics labs in Pakistan it's still in a stage I would say in the 1990s or into 2000, where there's still the labs are a brick and mortar. It is a lab at doorstep concepts introduced in Europe and in America. So Nawan is basically now coming and introducing a novel step where the labs come to the doorstep, do the tests, and give you results. It's the home collection is one thing, but actually the whole lab coming down in a van, or I would say in a minivan, or like in a bolan, and do the basic tests and give you the results right there. And then now the machinery and everything in the world has come up, which are very small machineries and compact machineries where you can give the tests within 10 to 15 minutes, and a patient does not have to go to a lab and get their tests done, or the lab personnel come in for a home collection. So it's a novel idea, which I think that basically it opened up. Secondly, with the courts being shut, with the doctor chambers being shut, so I think a good opportunity for companies such as ours would come up with the telemedicine and those things that we have been talked about, but has not been introduced before. With the sanitizing and health and hygiene, we just feel that now people would be more, I would say, conscious about health and safety and hygiene. And so we've partnered up with companies, and hopefully we'll be seeing these products much more in the retail sector as well as in the corporate sector. So overall, our COVID-19 experience from a personal standpoint has been good and bad, both. But the diversification has been our pivotal, I would say, a main area that I think we have survived this pandemic.
I think you are on your way to thriving as well, mashallah. So you're doing well with such diversification. But the thing is that...
So before Ayesha mentioned it, when she said that we do veterinary medicine something, right? I thought, okay, so a bunch of cats and a bunch of dogs won't get whatever they get. But then suddenly she
started through a bat, by the way.
Sorry?
I'm saying COVID started through a bat.
Yeah, well, we can't go into China just yet. But the point is that there were chickens and there were cows that basically did not get medicine. Is not something I even conceived of before you mentioned it. And that is a wider net to cast than anything I had imagined. That said, when you mentioned that the courts are closed, and Ehsan realized that courts being closed, doctors being closed, are suddenly ways for us to innovate. Is primarily where we started our like we realize that the world is going to start realizing the value of what we do as well, because suddenly courts are closed,
Yeah.
all the traditional options are closed for you. Now, what are you going to do? And then basically the fact that we have, by twist of fate, already started ODR, or online dispute resolution, it just literally became a very easy way to tell people, now you realize why we were doing all of this, so why don't you come join us? Which is why I'm sure with Mehak will continue with the rest of the webinar as well. We'll be able to figure out a lot of streams of why we started this and how we can work with you to actually make it, let's say, your default way of doing anything as far as dispute resolution is concerned. Inshallah. Shall we?
Taking that further, I would just like to ask that what kind of disputes arise in pharma, so we can help you understand how ADR can help you solve them as well.
Okay. So basically, I can divide. I would talk about the pharma industry as a whole, and a company. So pharma industry is a heavily regulated industry, where we come under the Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan, which is an autonomous body, comes under the National Health Services Ministry, headed by a federal minister. In the world, pharmaceutical industry is the most regulated industry after airline industry. So airline is the most regulated industry, and then it's the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry, the diagnostics, and everything. That a lot of laws and rules are designed to have the safety and efficacy of medicines, but at the same time, researchers and pharmacists have issues with the regulators, because most of the laws are not conducive enough or not well thought enough, which hampers the progress of a pharmaceutical medicine to be in the market. Or we get problems with pricing, with availability, with dossiers, and all those issues is mostly so. So around 70 to 80% of our issues are with our regulators. The process of registration and the process of pricing. So the DRAP is basically divided into 13 divisions, and we have around 3 to 5 divisions that we come in contact with every time, which is the licensing, the drug registrations, the pricing, and so forth. So the second issue that we come up with is FBRs, income tax, those things that we come up with. That is obviously with all the industry. But we got some reliefs as well, and we had issues somewhere. So that is an issue. So I can divide this into a public and a private. The private issues that we get is obviously doctor disputes, patients disputes, patient liability or product liability issues, risk factors. In Pakistan, still, it is not much of a big problem, but when we go to exports, we find that we have to have a product liability clause, which our exporters expect us to sign, and we do. And then obviously pharmaceutical companies have to be very careful signing that because the terms of usage and indications, how it's going to be used, and all those things. So that has to be carefully thought. So over an experience, we as a pharmaceutical company and as a pharmaceutical industry, we are with the lawyers and courts almost, I would say, 60% or 70% of our time. So we have a regulatory department. So it's not a simple business, and since we have a regulatory department, and those regulatory departments have lawyers and consultants with them all the. So and with that thing in mind, obviously the drug inspectors, the lawyers, and the inspectors come to our factories, visit it, and then we get into disputes. Since we have the courts and since we have the drug laws, when a pharmaceutical medicine is picked up and it is given to a drug testing laboratory, and if they fail or if they pass, we have to go through a process. So the lawyers are like, we have to be with our lawyers. So that's the main. The other thing is that the private issues that we have, that you said, how can we? Since I've divided them into public issues and the private issues, is the recovery matters that we have with distributors, that we have sent some goods to them and they haven't paid us the money, how to go about it and how to recover our money. How bad debts is usually very low in pharmaceuticals because we deal in cash, but still there are many parties that we give credit to, and at the same time then we go ahead and do the employee issues and all those issues that we have to deal with. So labor courts, and the third and the last would be the industrial issues with the EOBI, with SESI, with agencies. So the industry as a whole is I would say around there are 14 agencies or 15 agencies which come to our factories regularly, starting from the labor people to the sin tax people to the federal tax people and all those things that we have to have. So we have like a total. So that's a big I would say expense that a company has to do in order to run our businesses. So in that we do face issues and we do face problems. How to come up with an answer, how to deal with each issue. It depends upon the issue, and then we have a strategy how to cope up with it, and we discuss that with the management and the directors, that how we go about and deal with each issue on its own merit. Yeah, so that's how I divide it.
So basically, what I can understand is, and here we are going to have a very straight out business corporate conversation, right? You run a company in which your lawyers are your toolkit by which you manage to accomplish certain things, whether in your favor and whether against your favor, right? Now, what I see missing in that, and here as a lawyer, I'm trying very hard not to talk about the law and the legal stuff because it's always in our minds, apparently. But the fact is that we lawyers are trained to be fighters, and we fight. What I don't see in your company is a department that is there to conciliate, to sit there and to resolve things because they are trained to do so, as opposed to a lawyer who's trained to advocate and fight for you. So what we want to do and what we're going to do is to add mediation into your toolkit the same way you have legal in your toolkit. Okay? Now, let's say for the start of everything that you've discussed, the regulators and the government sector, right? The public sector we're dealing with. Now, this I can say with my experience as a lawyer that the government sector is stubborn. And the government sector is never going to admit fault. The government sector is never going to admit that this is what they offered and we're accepting this because they were right, we were wrong. Because the moment they do so, and I'm sure you and I are both aware of it, they are going to have so many accountability issues. They're going to have their jobs on the line. And by this, I mean the personal people sitting there who will say, okay, Mr. Ehsan Awan has signed this, we agree with it, and we're stamping it. What inevitably turns out to be is a situation where the government sector is taken to the court, where I'm sure your lawyers and you do as well, correct? The thing is, if I have to mediate in between, as far as the government sector is concerned, that means that essentially
Can't hear you.
what you have to do. Is everything okay?
Can you hear it, guys?
Okay. So what's left is, with the government sector, you have to play pretty much everything that you have in your toolkit. So Ehsan, if your lawyers say, and if the government, frankly, this happens as well a lot, the bureaucrats or the employees themselves say, so please go to the courts, because we would rather have a court order telling us what to do rather than just take it upon ourselves, because the courts are going to be able to deal with the NAB and everything else. So in that entire strategy meeting, where the lawyers will be there, where my mediators will be there, where you will be there, you'll figure out that first, to get the government sector onto the mediating table, you might have to use the lawyers. The lawyers may go to the court and specifically say, we've been trying to ask them to sit with us. They haven't done any of that. So please, and obviously, हम वकील हम भी जाके रिट ही करेंगे. तो रिट जाके करेंगे. रिट में कहेंगे, my lord, हम लोग बहुत नेक लोग हैं. We have been trying very hard to bring these people into our little room, have some tea, sit quietly, talk to us. They haven't agreed to do so. So please direct them, do the same, and then come to us. You say that, the judge will say, Ehsan Sahab, I like what you're saying. We make the same order that we want, and then with that order, we bring them onto the table where we will be sitting to mediate. The government department will be sitting there as well, and we figure out a solution however it happens through the way that we make solutions happen.
Okay.
Now, in the non-public sector, it's much easier because the non-public sector, the private sector, actually cares about time, about money, and about where they're spending their time and their money. When we give them the option, even in the recovery case, that this is the option available to you, either we're going to file with you, or we're going to, let's say, if you have security on board, we're going to encash whatever guarantees we have with you, or sit with us, tell us, how is it that this entire amount that you still owe me, how are you going to make it happen? When and where will any of the payments be done? What is the structure? What is the timeline? This entire setup will be done by our team, with you and with them, because we'll be able to talk a language that maybe you can't talk to them, because you're already fighting with them. And maybe they can talk to us about things that they can't share with you. Because one of the beautiful things that mediation brings about is that we're all confidential. We're neutrals, for one. So when we as neutrals talk to them, we can ask them things that you can't ask maybe, and B, even if you ask, you won't get answers. But we can. And that will help us formulate a plan that may work out beyond what you guys thought. So these are still all external issues. Even in your contractual and partnership and employee issues, not employee, sorry, employees internal. We'll get to that. So your contractual partnership and your suppliers. See, depending on whether or not you have a dispute resolution clause and what that dispute resolution clause says, if you have mediation and arbitration happening automatically, that's easy. If you don't have mediators, we're already there. Don't worry about that. If you want arbitrators, we already have that. So don't worry about that either. If you don't have any of those, then we have to still make the case to them. Either you mediate with us, or we have certain ways to make sure that you will eventually come to mediate with us. And that is again a strategy meeting. Finally, internal issues. Now here is where mediation, or the softer side of mediation, is much more useful. You have employees, and as you just mentioned in COVID, you guys had to make a difficult decision. You had to keep them, and you had to keep paying them, even when maybe they weren't able to do the jobs that they were doing. Even outside a situation, if an employee is working or doing something, and maybe you don't agree with, what your HR department may not have is the training or the ability to actually mediate in between them. Because unfortunately, most of our how do I put this, professional sector in Pakistan is not equipped with a lot of communication training. It's not equipped with a lot of interpersonal training. Mediation, and the one very simple aspect of mediation that we teach is how to listen and how to communicate and how to reframe communication so that someone else's anger, their venting, their emotions are acknowledged, and whatever they want done, whatever they want sorted, is also understood and communicated onwards, so that everyone is clear about what the actual concerns are. Sometimes it's as easy as just getting a sorry out of someone. But because no one wants to say, I want a sorry out of you, right, to your person, they ask me to say, okay, look, just tell him I want a sorry. And then we tell you, would be okay if you just said sorry to him. And you would obviously have an opinion about that. And then you'd come back and your opinion would say, Akbar, sure, let's just do whatever he says. I think it'll help us work through whatever we're doing. So this and a lot of other options are only available to you if you do have mediators. And it's not just because I want to pitch my service. This is because that is the simple fact of business. In Pakistan, before, we didn't have mediators, so everything was presumed to either be fight or flight. Now we are just waiting for everyone to realize that you guys have to come on board with us and work with us, because then you can truly figure out the beauty and the benefit of everything that we are trying to work on. And I think we have connection issues again.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. So, were you able to follow?
We did partially, but then we lost you. I think
Yeah, at the
somewhere
end, with the employee,
Right.
with HR.
with the HR.
So, HR and employees, I'll repeat it and make it a little bit shorter. So, HR and employees, inevitably, if your HR is not trained, then you will train them. Until they are trained, we'll be there for you, but then we'll train them. Because these are not things that you should depend on from an external supplier or an external provider. These are things that guys should have internally with you. And even then, the benefits of having mediation in a company is enormous, but the simple fact is because Pakistan did not have it before, your options were either to fight or flight. So when we are giving a service that gives you the middle option, you at times have to rethink a lot of things. Yeah, if I had this option way before in that other dispute that I was having, maybe I could have continued to have a relationship with this person, with this supplier, with this employee, and so on.
Okay,
So,
yeah, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt and ask you, how's your international experience has been, and since you were in Turkey as well, and plus, how do they resolve issues in the pharma sector or in the industry sector with the public or with the private? Do they go for out of court settlements, or the regulators are? Because I have no clue how do they deal with the regulators and all that.
Do you
So,
want me to?
both of us can.
Okay.
So, Mehak had an entire webinar with our Turkish experts. So she'll give you the depth of it all. What I can just venture into just in one sentence is that we have our master mediator who is Ashian. She's from Turkey. And I think we've lost you again.
Yeah, they're
kind of stuck.
frozen. Let me ask them.
Yeah, they're back. They're back. Right.
Sorry,
So,
this is
no worries. Don't worry. So Ashian is is a very, very experienced mediator in Turkey, and she's part of our panel as well. So from her, I remember this was years ago when we first started a lot of things. Turkey has laws that require you to mediate. So especially in labor laws, you are required to show that you have mediated the dispute, and then maybe it failed. But it is an essential part of their entire system because they have realized, along with Italy and Greece and a lot of other European countries, including some parts of the UK as well, that if you do not mediate, then you are literally just going to have what we have over here, which is, I'm not allowed to say things like that publicly on a webinar, but it's not great. So now Mehak can give you what she had with Ashian.
Basically, what she elaborated on was that in Turkey, it started with labor disputes because every company has labor disputes, and they made it mandatory for the dispute to first be mediated, at least one meeting, and that meeting the expenses were being paid by the court as well. So now what happens was, and when people had this experience of that one meeting, then they did not want to go to courts. So there was an automatic shift in the companies and in the factories that the labor disputes, they were going towards mediation. And this they introduced in 1 year. And this was only for labor disputes. And then in the next year, they went to consumer disputes. So each year they are adding one more portion of law in mediation. And that is how very organically and somewhat mandatorily the culture of ADR has developed in Turkey and is very much a part of it now.
Okay, great.
So one thing I think after what Ehsan thing I just want to add is the procedure. Like, how do we? What I don't understand is how do we approach you? How does our company approach you? How do you come up and give us training? All that. How does it work? Is this an hourly training? Is it how will this work? And one thing that's important for pharma is the two things actually. One is the fact that confidentiality is a very important part of pharmaceutical companies all over, because, as you know, we're a very we prize on our R&D, right? So we're very R&D centric to the extent so that we would like that confidentiality of our R&D and of all our products remain. So that's one reason that we're very inclined to ADR, is because we do not want certain disputes to go to court and the confidentiality to be exposed. Secondly, we would like to know about the mediation services that you all provide, especially for HR and also I think our supply chain departments.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can, starting with, if two directors have a different point of view of one thing,
the art of listening.
They are
having two, because if you don't want to go with one company, and the other one says that you have to go, and I'm saying, or like one director is saying no, that their payment terms or their whatever terms are not good. How do you mediate?
How do I mediate? I sit you both down and then just tell you, people, chill.
One thing I forgot to mention about Nawan is, unlike other pharmaceutical companies who spend 40% of their time with lawyers, Nawan spends about 100% time with the lawyer.
See, that is the best kind of training. Whenever he speaks, it feels like he already knows. Look, dude, I know what I'm gonna do. You better give me a better option. Otherwise, I've got all the resources sitting over there. Okay, don't tell me about the law. I got my lawyer. All right. So first off, as far as the services are concerned, for example, look, Ayesha or Ehsan, I mean, for you guys, it's kind of simple. You just have to pick up your phone and call me. But for everyone else, we made a website. And that website, we've tried to keep it as simple as possible. Right on the homepage, you scroll down, or you scroll just a little bit, or you look at the menu, and we have Book Your Mediator.
Okay.
You click on that, and we have options. We have the master mediators, people who have been mediating for years and years, and they're recognized in the UN, in the World Bank, in the UK, in Singapore. We've got Turkey, we've got Greece as well. You've got the entire spectrum, and out of that, you pick either the masters, who are from all over the world, or if your dispute doesn't require a master, you can go for a senior, which is basically everyone that has been trained by ADR International in one of the most qualified courses on the planet, which we will tell you about. Or you can, if your dispute is basically one of such a nature that you don't feel like spending too much effort in it or too much money in it, but you still want it resolved, then we have the junior mediators, who are, let's say, newly graduated, but they have all been trained in the same course as everyone else. So for them and for you, that is basically your decision on which step you want. And right on the website is written the hourly rate of the mediation session that each of these mediators charge. If you want, you can specifically ask for an hourly session or for multiple hour sessions. And in the website, you can also schedule each of them as you like. So that is basically the entire setup that we made, so that ODR in itself is a simple process for anyone to start with. And then we come down to whether you want all done on Zoom, on Team, on Skype, or in person. And for any of those options, we will have the requisite category or the requisite button on the website, and you can press it, and then we'll have it, and then we'll get in touch with you. You will give your case details, you'll give all the details that you think are necessary. The other party can also bring it on board, and we can just start with that. And we have technical issues again.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. So they'll join us in a second. And for all of our viewers over there, if you want to book a mediator, as I mentioned, the website is very simple. If you, for some reason, do not understand which mediator to go for, you can definitely call us, or you can definitely text us or message us right from the website. So we have everything possible for you guys to make sure that the communication is easy for you to get to. And we're still dealing with some issues on that end. So how about in this entire space, we share with you what, let's say, another mediation product that we are developing, including with Nawan, is something that we would like to call startup mediation. So we're trying to work with all the startups that are around in various stages of their growth. We're trying to give them the option of because usually a startup is one guy with a dream who may or may not really know how to deal with other people at the moment because he is trying to work on his product. So what does he do when disputes happen? He can't afford a lawyer. So now he can call us and we'll figure it out with him in whatever package works for him in whatever manner suits him best. And we are still going to wait for them to come back on board with us. But this is a lot of fun.
I learned a lot about pharma. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As just to learn livestock is still veterinary. I just didn't think about it all.
Yeah, because when we think about the vet, it's like a cat or a dog. We don't think in terms of livestock. But
apparently, in some places of the world, it's a bat as well.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, welcome back.
Sorry.
How about we?
Yeah, do that.
So we have our website where you can book us with, and something happened to you guys again?
I think so.
Ah. Ah, well.
Are they coming back?
Yep. So what we have to share with you beyond the startup mediation is something that Ayesha and Ehsan will also be discussing with us and will probably launch with them as well. It's something that we're calling expert evaluation. Because amongst the entirety of the sessions that we've had, usually at times we have certain parties who are stubborn. By stubborn, we mean that they cannot seem to figure out how to get through whatever position that they already have stuck in their heads or whatever some lawyer has told, wherever that lawyer is. Are you back with us?
Yeah,
Excellent.
we're back again. We're back
Sorry.
together.
So we
Yes, we're
discussed bookings in the website, and as far as trainings are concerned,
Take
our
it.
trainings are conducted by ADR International, and recently, for the first time, we have managed to shift all our courses to an online course. So while sitting in Pakistan, before there was I believe it was November of 2019 when we conducted our first course, and all the trainers had to fly in from either the UK or Greece or from Germany. Now it all happens online. So we schedule a date with them, we give them a number of people, and if a course is already happening somewhere in the world, for example, in August just now, it happened on the 3rd in the UK. In September, it might happen in Germany. So if a person from Pakistan wants to join up with that course, then we can make that happen so that they join in either from Lahore, Karachi, Istanbul, wherever they are, right? But obviously, for you guys, we also want to make a corporate level of a course. So once we get into the depths of it all, we'll discuss it with you. But for everyone else, our courses are on our website, and we have a schedule where hopefully now we'll be doing it every month somewhere in the world, and that will allow you guys to join in.
Oh, that's fantastic.
All right, great,
Yeah.
great. So the process of you saying that, obviously if we want to engage you or engage a master or a senior or a junior, let's say we engage you on the first time, and the other party or the other person does not agree to mediate. So how is that gonna affect? Obviously, we will still be charged, or how it's gonna work out, or do we have like a contract with you first, and then you go ahead and ask the other party, or what?
So what happens is, let's put standard practice aside. What ADR and Awan are going to do eventually, and obviously we'll discuss in detail later on, is you and I are going to have an MOU and we're going to explore how mediation works in your industry. And I do not want to make presumptions, because that is a very dangerous thing to do when you're offering a new service. You assume it's going to happen like it happened in the UK or in Turkey and so on. But let's say if a party doesn't agree to mediate, as far as the payment or the mediator is concerned, that is something we only charge for if the mediation session happens. If the mediation session happens and it goes through, we obviously will charge for it. If the parties are backed out and there's no mediation, then we'll refund. It's very simple for us.
All right. And as a lawyer, would you send a legal notice to the other party and then you go ahead and for mediation and all that to bring them on the table? Or I'm just like asking, like it just.
I think they're neutral, right? So there's no notices that.
Achha, all right. Okay.
What happens
Akbar
with
can-
us? हाँ, हमारी प्रिजम्पशन ये होती है कि पार्टीज में पहले ही कंसेंसस है कि आपने मीडिएशन करनी है. ये एक प्रिजम्पशन है. अगर एक पार्टी ने मीडिएशन करने की रिक्वेस्ट की है, हमें कहा है कि हमें दूसरी पार्टी से करना चाह रहे हैं, what we can do is send a letter on behalf of the ADR initiative and say that Nawan Laboratories would like to mediate this dispute with you, with ADR initiative. We would like to invite you to a mediation session with us so we can help you mediate this dispute. If, and here again, because it's a voluntary process, there is nothing that can compel them to come to the mediation. So here is where we have to figure out what the lawyers say. In Ehsan, I think we both know what the lawyers are going to say. The lawyers are going to say that if, let's say, you are the one who is in a hurry, and you are the one who needs something, and maybe if for no other reason you need an injunction against someone, so that the other party is put on alert and then has to figure out what to do with their situation, you play your cards. You play all the cards available to you to make sure, because you know and I know that whatever we file in the court for a decree purpose, that is going to take 6 or 7 years. Or whatever we file for an interim injunction, that's going to take 3 days. So if in the process of 3 days, your position or your situation has somehow become, let's say, stronger, where you can then ask the party that we need to put this all aside, come to the table so we can put this behind us and then move on with the world and then just settle this entire thing. We want to get these guys on board because they're the ones who have been working on it, and they can probably mediate the settlement because you and I can deal with this stuff. That is when we step in.
Okay.
More visibly. Before that, we're part of you as far as the decision-making process of it is concerned as well.
Okay. So do you have any, and if we do not want to go with an hourly charge or anything, but we have a retainership because we get disputes from a small dispute of a vendor to a public sector dispute, do you have like some sort of retainership on a monthly basis?
Of course we can. But that is again a very customized thing. Of that you and I can talk to from the moon and back. And then I will have to put my mediator cap aside and then just deal with you.
Okay, no.
You have a negotiator cap.
Since we'll be coming into that process that, probably we start a pilot project with you and we have an understanding with you. So interesting, just today, I'll just give you a brief, and I hope it's not in the hourly charge that I
So, man, that's debatable, okay? But, we're on a webinar, I can't say no. Continue.
So
He's
interesting.
got you on the spot.
Yeah, I got you on the spot, and that's what a businessman does. So just get your So that's how Ayesha said yes to me when I proposed to her. We had to say yes because I had her on spot. So interestingly enough, today we just had this conversation with one of the vendors of a software app that we developed with them, and we are having issues, and that those issues are not being resolved by our management team and by me and by the MD of that company as well. And it has gotten to the point where we have sent them sort of a frustrating sort of a statement that we will go with the legal battle if you don't agree with us. Though it is not a big amount of the money that we paid them, and they did not deliver the the software app that we agreed to. But the process has taken almost a year or year and a half of development, and we actually, wasted a lot of time where they said they agreed that they will develop within 2 months or 3 months, then 6 months and 8 months to a year and a year and a half. So it has been quite a big waste of time. So in order, we can walk away from the deal and we can say, okay, fine, we paid you, this amount, and if you can't do it, we'll search for another company, and we'll go ahead with a new company and develop the whole thing. Or we can go and just to, it's sort of like a frustration by my management team that they want to, obviously they're frustrated that this other software vendor is not agreeing to what we're saying, and they have not developed the stuff that they agreed to and the terms of services that they agreed that, and they're on their obviously point, and we have this conflict going on. So just today, the MD spoke to my management team head, the team leader, and they said that we have 3 options. The first option, that we go ahead and complete your project, and whatever you say we will do, but you have to pay us this. That obviously we do not agree to that. The second option, he said that आप 10 बंदे ले आएं, मुझे भी बिठा दें, आप भी बैठ जाएं, दोनों बैठ के बात कर लेते हैं, जो मेरा point of view है वो भी आप देख लें, जो आपका point of view है. So I'm agreeing to that. The third option, he said, you want to go with the legal battle? Okay, I'm ready for the legal battle. अगर आपने फड्डा करना है तो फड्डा कर लें, बैठना है तो बैठ लें. So we have all the 3 options, available. So that's right there today that we were discussing this. So
fair enough.
Any thoughts? Yeah.
So basically, the first option requires you to pay more money, and I'm guessing that's off the table. So we have 2 options left. The third option is always available to you. You can always go to the court, barring limitation problems. So you're left with the second option, and the second option is where I can help you.
Okay.
So what we can do is, after this entire webinar, we can have a conversation. You can share the matter of the dispute with me. You can check with your counterparty whether they would agree to, as Ahmad sahab agar unhone option de di hai, then you would want to volunteer that we want to bring a neutral mediator on board so that this can be resolved. And then you move forward with that. What we can do is, you can then email us or share with us the actual case statement that we call as lawyers with us, and the other party can do so as well. And once the mediator has gone through them, we can then schedule a mediation where we sit and then we hear both parties out, whether together or whether separately. That depends on how much you guys can stand each other on the same table.
All right. Okay, that's fine.
One thing that I also want to add, and there's a question that I want to ask you, is that a lot of disputes, and especially with ours, apart from this one, have a lot of facts involved, right? So we would like, there's obviously liabilities, there's also responsibility, but there's also a lot of factual things that arise, right? There are a lot of factual problems, there are a lot of factual loopholes. So what about that? Do we have a neutral fact finding, like when we go to court? So there, to obviously present hum dono apne dete hain side of the story. But what about in mediation? What happens in mediation? Is there a fact finding, a person that you put on the case, or does the mediator do that? How do we go about those things?
Okay. A mediator cannot do fact finding because he is trying to be neutral, and he cannot actually just go and figure out what is happening as far as fact finding is concerned. But what we do have, or what we're going to have and we're going to launch very soon, is something that we are calling, inshallah, expert evaluation. So what we know that I am a lawyer, and lots of other lawyers. And focus. And lots of other, not just lawyers, legal experts. And not just legal experts, and experts in the field. What we want to launch alongside that is the expert evaluator, who can be either from the legal community or from any other expertise. He will be brought on board to figure out what the actual factual situation, if that is the question, arises out of, let's say, the same way the evidence that there is provided to the court. So the problem is, in a fact-finding situation, if you go to the court, you have to give the entire case, and the evidence and everything that is confidential is out there to just read through by any moron with a slight understanding of English, and suddenly everyone's the pharma expert. But before that, what you can do with the expert evaluation part is, we will, inshallah, when we launch it very soon, we're just trying to work out the right people for it and the panel. And what we want to offer is that this is a judge of a session court who is now retired. He is going to look at the is going to look at the case, is going to look at the evidence that you provide. And he is going to tell you what, if this entire situation had come in his court, what he would have decided as far as the factual inquiry is concerned. With that in hand, that is not a way to force someone to agree to it, but it's very compelling. Because forcing someone to agree to something, actually, it can happen in fact finding, but then they have to actually agree to it through an agreement. Similar to an arbitration agreement. So if there is an agreement that this determination by the expert will be binding on us, that's great. But almost no lawyer will ever agree to that one. What they can agree to the fact is, okay, we're not admitting that we're wrong, but we understand that it looks like maybe we could be in the wrong with this if the court sees it that way. So let's talk about it. And in that let's talk about it is where your position is as close to fixed as it can get. Because before that, even with the court determination, the lawyer is still gonna never admit, the client is still gonna never admit, and the appeal will go on for the rest of their life. So expert evaluation is frankly what we believe is the best complement to mediation, in a way that it gives us the validity or the, let's call it, the certification that a court provides. So that let's say someone who is more inclined to just keep on persisting that the court is the option. And I'll give you a simple scenario with this. This was discussed with me by a very senior retired Supreme Court judge, the recent Chief Justice, in fact. And he said that this was something he experienced when going on conferences in Canada. So one of the provinces there, which I can't remember the name of, they have a tier system before you can file a case. So first, your case is evaluated by a lawyer, then by a retired judge, and if you're not convinced by any of them, then by a judge of the same court who is not going to listen to your case, but is going to be there, part of the same panel or roster. If you are so stubborn about your position that you don't realize that the guy who is sitting in court would decide still against your favor, and you still want to go to the court for it, and so be it. But then he literally has to give the reasons for all of these no's that he has been trying to work around. So these are beautiful ways that the law of the world everywhere. The UK, for example, gives you cost penalties. At some point in our lifetime, maybe Pakistan will allow for litigation costs. If that happens, then a lot of frivolous litigation will actually get sorted. But that is a much, much longer battle. But in the UK, it's not the same. It's not the case, sorry. So what happens is, if whenever you're filing a case, you write, have you attempted to settle the dispute through ADR? If the lawyer has written no, because the lawyers are required to take it, and the lawyer is required to show that to the client that he is supposed to tell them that ADR is a much safer, much cheaper, much faster option. And this is usually to discourage the lawyers. And if they still say, no, we have not tried, they're required to give reasons. And those reasons come up when the cost analysis is going on. Because then, even if you won the case, the court will penalize you with the costs because you wasted so much time in something that could have been resolved very easily.
So what about in the US?
Sorry?
What about in the US? Because in the US, every lawyer comes up with their own advertisement, suing everyone else for putting litter on their driveway or anything like sue them. So does ADR works in the US or no? Or do they
ADR almost, you can say, even if it didn't start there, it had its big rising in the US. Because the American Bar Association, what they realized was, they did a study in which they saw how many district level and other level cases are going on. And when they realize how long these cases have gone on and what some mediators can accomplish with just a few of those cases, now here I don't know the law because every state has a different law in that regard. But in the US, mediation is a bigger business than litigation for the most part. And by that, I mean volume.
And this is organic. Yeah.
Settlements and putting the courts in and then going for mediation. It's sort of, because I mean, obviously all the advertisements are geared about like, lawyers are making money by just suing other people for like frivolous matters. So that's what's going on in the US. That's what
one thing I want to ask is, you asked us about how COVID has changed us and our businesses. We want to know that I'm sure COVID at this point, after realizing the fact that, I think as even corporates realize that going to court might not be any feasible for them, because now with businesses, having, being at a loss also, with the economy going down, people don't have the liberty to wait for judges to make decisions over the years. They want quick and fast results. So what about how are things going to turn out in Pakistan? Do you think mediation will people will move towards it? And are you guys also planning on doing something like speaking to the bar or to the legislation to try to... I know
Ayesha, the problem with the bar and with the legislation that I've always tried to say is ADR, yes, I'll be kind to them. ADR has been despised by lawyers unfairly because to them it is somehow eating into their cash money. I have tried to explain to lawyers that you do one case which you have to work on for the next 5 years, jiske liye ek bulk amount hai, and then they have to live with it forever and ever. A mediation, if you do it right, goes 2-3 hours, let's say 1 day, 2 days, whatever. You charge a certain amount, which is admittedly maybe less than whatever you get from litigation, but you're done with it. You don't ever have to have it on your diary for the rest of your life, and you move on. The economics of it are much better than litigation. But the simplest issue is, as far as legislation is concerned, Karachi, I know Sindh has some legislation which Jawad mentioned, and I'm sure
Punjab ki bhi aayegi ADR.
So there is a Punjab Act as well for ADR. The unfortunate part is that
it's not enforced.
So there are so many vested interests by so many other people involved in it that usually these things just basically go away over there and then they just die.
Okay, just one question. Yeah, sorry. Finish your thought, then I'll ask the question.
Our strategy is very simple. Don't wait for anyone. Don't wait for the government. Don't wait for the bar. Don't wait for someone's, okay, son, you can do this. We're just going with it, and that is working out better for us than the other way around.
And I want to add something. The culture of ADR already exists in Pakistan. If you look at your smaller cities or towns or your villages, either you have the jirgas or the panchayats, or you have the qazis in small towns where people go to the masjid and say, he hasn't paid me back, what do I do? So the ADR system, the culture already exists. It's traditionally there. Yes, it has issues when it comes to human rights violations. That's another thing, why it should be regulated. However, most people who cannot afford to go to court, or because court cases takes that much time, they do need an alternate, and they are trying to make it out as well. Now, it would be better if these people were trained. So they would be neutral. So they would not take a side or have their own bias come in, because culturally there are a lot of biases. Women, if they are, and other cases such as family cases, they're not the best thing for an adversarial process. Your children are collateral damage. So for that, also mediation is something which is very important. And in the UK, it is mandatory for family court cases and divorce cases. So yes, we have a culture, but we need to spread awareness more for trainings, and that's about it.
Okay, so basically in Pakistan, my question was that in Pakistan, this mediation, basically, would it hold in court, or would we be sharing papers to the court that yes, we did go with mediation and then it didn't happen or whatever, or It does not have any legal binding. It does not have any enforcement whatsoever.
So different places in Pakistan allow for you to make a mediated settlement rule of court. So Karachi has some provisions in the CPC that allows that. Punjab is still trying. I need to understand or check how far they've come, but they've been trying. So what happens is when you have a settlement by both parties, and this is where maybe implementation is a bigger hurdle for us and for everyone that is trying to work on ADR. This is what we discussed with Royal Fans in our first webinar as well. He kept saying, you and I need to figure out implementation, because dash of a human being, if he decides again not to pay me, then how are we going to make him pay me? And on that, we have had a conversation, and it will be a much longer conversation, a much more global conversation about implementation. Because if I tell you that yes, you can go to the courts to enforce it because you have a settlement, and that settlement can be enforced, and that settlement can be as evidence, and then the court can give a decree. But if I have tried so hard to keep you out of the courts, and then suddenly says now you go to court, I have basically lost you there. So the simplest and maybe the longest project that we're putting, and Mehak will tell you about a think tank soon, is on implementation. Now there are many ideas. So, for example, one of the one of the more interesting ideas I was given was about certain ways that, let's say, okay, I'm not going to give that one publicly, but one of the ideas is associations, for example. So business shaming is very real, and business shaming or blacklisting someone from an association has a very real consequence.
Yeah.
So if let's say breach of a settlement, that one of the associations, I'm sure there's something for Pharma as well, there was, because there was one for fans, and we were in conversation that we should work with them to work with the association and figure out a way that if there is a settlement that we bring about, the association should recognize it, or we can do it within the association, because I'd love to train the people in the association as well. And once that happens, if someone breaches our settlement, they need to be called out on it. There are much more creative solutions where I remember one of the judges told me of a case where when one person did not agree to his settlement, certain kinds of people were sent outside his shop with banners, with songs, with all kinds of lovely
I'm sure that must be true.
and then they were basically holding up something that said this guy backed out of a deal, and then just basically harass him until he realizes that he needs to either get back into it or something else. Social justice is complicated. Yes, I know. But
and also it can go both ways, because I
Exactly.
remember, obviously Imran Khan came with this dispute resolution at the at the Jirga level, at the police station level. I remember that what was it called? I
No,
forgot.
I remember before an
PCO,
FIR.
some sort with POC or PCO. I don't know what it was. That he came up with that. So especially in KPK, when he had the government there the last time, those were come up, and Peshawar High Court basically rejected that just because it did not have any legal cover.
Yep.
Also, some scrupulous people went to the police stations and called up their neighbors and whatever, and brought them to police station and asked them for money, and Jirga sat there, and this was going on. So we had a personal experience with one of the parties, in one of the customers in Mardan, that we got a call from them that come to this Jirga or come to this mediation process, and this was a police station calling from Mardan. When I called a lawyer, they said that they do not have a legal cover. They can't call you. You don't want to sit in that mediation, fine. So obviously, that sort of, it can go both ways. So we need to understand that if it doesn't have any legal cover, that's fine also, because it can be, if it has a legal cover or implementation, that can go really bad for vulnerable people.
Exactly. See, there's a certain way that our entire nation or species has a habit of abusing a certain system, and that we are immensely creative about. Never mind anything else.
Can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. In the UK, there is an alternate dispute system as well, which they don't like to recognize. Now, thing is, if you are Jewish or if you are Muslim, right? You are married, your nikah, or if you are married in Judaism, it's a very religious ceremony and it is a religious marriage. So the UK courts, they will give you a legal divorce, but they won't give you a religious divorce. And for that religious divorce, there are alternate dispute resolution centers there called the Get for the Judaism, and there are also Muslim centers there as well. And they're very predominant in East London. So over there, what happens is that even though the UK does not recognize their legality, it does impose laws on them. Yes, you can mediate family disputes. Yes, you can mediate divorce disputes. However, you cannot mediate on custody issues. The best interest of the child. That is still something the court will approve of your settlement and then it might be implemented. So if the child is being, if it's not in the best interest, it can't be implemented. So it's not just a system in Pakistan. Everywhere in the world, the system exists because people do not agree with the law all the time, or the law of the country might not be enough to cater to every person.
Yeah, I think this
Yeah.
is a point where Mehak can tell you what are. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just saying that I missed out on the first part, where I asked you that if this mediation process, the implementation is one thing, but if you can show this to the court that one party agreed to mediate, and we had all, but the other party, after giving them all the options, does not want to mediate, and after mediation, especially in custody cases and divorce cases and employee cases, the other party wants to just take them to court and teach them a lesson. So would you, the other party who wants to avoid courts and shows the intention of mediation and gives the other party all those options, and the other party does not want to use those options, and it's clear to the court that they don't have the case, but they just want to teach a lesson to the other party and go to court and take them all the how that process is going to be shown to the court, and would the court look at it sympathetically to the party in hand, that yes, the other party had, let's say party A, had the intention of resolving this dispute through mediation, but party B has the intention of taking them to court and teaching them a lesson.
So there is the rule, the equity, that everybody, that a petition
Basically, yeah.
So
what Ayesha will tell you is, sorry. So basically, the simplest words that we have to define that, and the way I can tell you the courts already know, is because we have Latin terms for it. So I assure you, it has been going on for a long time. It's called bona fide or mala fide.
Yeah.
So the first requirement in the court is that you're coming into the court with clean hands.
Okay.
If you cannot show that to the court is automatically going to presume against you, and maybe just throw away your suit entirely. Because you can show, my lord, this is everything that we've tried, and they have still not agreed to just a peaceful settlement. So obviously they have something to hide. So please clarify to them, or clarify it for us, and ask them to go sit with us and discuss it. And that is usually, this is not something that the court is going to automatically say, okay, you right, you wrong. But they are going to look at intentions, or let's say niyat, as we call it.
All right. So basically, then mediation is a better process to go through it, and then we approach the court. While we know that this is what we've done, and the other person does not want to do it. All right, great.
So now I think there's a point where Mehak can tell you that our think tank, आपके साथ सवाल थे ना, about how Pakistan is going to do it and everything else. She can tell you how our think tank is trying to figure out how to make ADR work in Pakistan, like in the big sense. So we have these webinars. We have, let's say, an ODR rules process where we're going to launch Pakistan's first model rules that anyone can basically adapt into their own company or into their own center, and a range of other things which I will leave for her to tell you about.
All right. So we already know that ADR Initiative has mediation services and trainings, and the last component of it is the think tank. Now, the think tank's main purpose is research and researching areas where you are like asking about implementation problems. And then we were also researching on online dispute resolution rules, the model process, that because everything is going online, how should we go about it? We have drafted those rules. Right now, they're with experts and consultants who are giving their own opinions on it. Then it will be open source.
You should ask Ayesha to consult with that too. Ayesha,
for
you should
pharma, yes.
You should definitely come on board.
I'll come to that. Okay. So for ODR rules and everything, now they will be open source. Okay,
they're back.
They're back. So they will be open sourced and anyone can use them. And when I'm saying anyone, people can use them within their own mediation departments in their companies or the ADR initiative centers as well that are being made. And we're starting a new center in different universities.
Okay.
So those are the rules that can be used there. Now, in the think tank, we're also considering publications which are in newspapers and which are also on academic websites. Apart from that, we're also launching our newsletters. And considering, I think, we're going to be talking a lot about that app developer of yours. I was thinking that Ayesha, I could do something about pharma and ADR, because I think pharma itself in Pakistan is a very less talked about topic, even though people right now are very interested in pharma. So we can have that research as well. Generally what pharma disputes are and if we go through with the web developer thing, that would be actually a pilot research as well, that how it works. Apart from that, we have our webinar series. We are doing the Alliance series, which is with industry experts such as yourself, because you are experts in the pharma industry. Our other one is much more grassroots. It is called the Peace Building series. So it will be basically us talking to people about their disputes. It can be clergymen, it can be musicians. What do they usually have as disputes and how have they tried to solve them? Has it worked? Has it not worked? Apart from that, we're also working on youth and conflict management. We are working on comparative research on ADR practices around the world. We are analyzing legislative changes that should be done and are not being implemented. And one of the bigger components that I'm very much interested in as well, like, apart from youth and conflict management, is culture and dispute resolution.
Oh,
and we are going to
interesting.
We have two of our associates in ADR Initiative who are going to be doing sociological research in their areas, their panchayats and jirgas, where they belong to those areas. So that research will be interesting. So what I want is that in my newsletter that we right now are going to be publishing, I would want to do something with you guys, and we can have Pharma as well as a research project.
Definitely.
We would love to.
We would love to, and we would also want to congratulate you with the wonderful work that you're doing. And at this point, very apt. It's much needed in Pakistan.
Thank you.
I think we've lost them.
And I think we've lost them again.
It's all right. We'll come back.
I'm so glad that your team also.
I see you breaking up.
We're not going anywhere as of so soon. So we've, fantastic to talk to you guys. You guys are doing.
Thank you.
This can really take up, and there's soon a legislation where it is compulsory to go for mediation. We've really, as myself, I really hope that you guys, and I hope you and Mehak both can actually make that legislation.
So
thank you so much.
It's a great initiative. And the first time I met Akbar in Turkey, I knew that this guy will do wonders to Pakistan. And such a wonderful person and a wonderful host and a wonderful guy that I remember. And then we hit it off. I think the first time we met and we for dinner.
I think
it was the air of Istanbul. I tell you. Yes, it was the air of Istanbul. I tell you, that is what basically hit me. It hit you, and then I was basically then you got married, and then I got married, and then marriage just basically became our lives. But yeah,
Yeah.
so thank you. So Ehsan,
Thank you guys.
so much.
It's been
Great.
great.
This is great opportunity for webinars, and I love webinars. But I still do miss that these sort of conferences. It should happen person to person. That after having these an hour and a half briefing and conferences, the high tea is missing in this webinar. So
yeah, right. We'll work on that. Don't worry.
so I mean,
Let
Zoom meetings or whatever it is, Zoom conferences are great. I do miss my chicken. I do miss
The livestock.
the livestock, chicken patties and the samosas and
Okay.
all those.
I think this is
I feel you. I need you as a pharma industry to figure out a vaccine very soon, so that I can get back into actually working in anywhere that we want in person, inshallah. So, Ehsan, in some form conclusion, you and I will sign an MOU. We'll come to some agreement. We'll start working on this immediately, inshallah, and we will be the example that maybe everyone else will eventually learn to follow, and then fix their lives as well. Because the range that Mehak has done and everything else we're trying to do is there for a bigger purpose. Yes, the business sustainability is required and it will be there. But if peace building actually works in Pakistan and the world, it will be one of the nicest things we leave our generations to come. Because as yet, we've only taught them just fight. That's kind of, I mean, yeah. So thank you so much. You guys have been lovely. And
Thank you,
as always,
guys.
Take care.
See you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we're very
Bye.
sorry for the connection.
Yeah.
It's okay. You were
No worries.
lovely. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you.
See you.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
bye. See you guys soon.